Schemas, and welcome to a little workshop that is going to give you great ideas about independent play. I'm going to give you a presentation where I'm going to talk about a little secret called play schemas. And I think you're going to like it. I think it's going to give you lots of information to set up some independent play activities and to understand how your child is playing, is using the power of observation so that you can see what your child is doing and how they're taking all this information from the world and translating it in their own little world. So if you're ready, let's get started. Let me open the presentation and we can get going. So let's talk about the secret to independent play with play schemas. So if you ever hear, my child doesn't seem interested in the activities that I set up for them. I spend more time setting up the activity than my child actually playing with it. Or you say, moms say that their kids are spending so much time, so many hours playing with certain activity, and then you do it for your child, and then immediately they just walk away from it, and you don't understand what you're doing wrong, what are you not setting up correctly, that your child is not interested. I want to let you know that that is completely normal. It is very common. And I'm going to teach you the why behind it. There's nothing wrong that you're doing. It's not on you. It's not on your child. It's just simply the secret to independent play. It is the secret of play schemas, why some activities are so entertaining to one child and not so much to others. So your child needs independent play as part of their day-to-day activities. They take in the world and there's so much information, and the way they translate it, it turns into this play. So play that they do with you and play that they can recreate on their own. So what do you need to create an independent play environment? You're going to need plenty of free time to play and explore, and they need uninterrupted play. They need at least 30 to 45 minutes of uninterrupted play so that they can get really into it. Depending on your child's age, this is going to look a little bit different. The younger your child is, the more assistance in their play they're going to need, because they don't have the creativity developed as wide as a preschooler or an elementary kid, so to come up with their own creative ideas. So how do we start with independent play? Well, we need to start with side-by-side play to encourage that security. They need to be secure in their play. And the way that you can foster independent play is that you're going to play side-by-side with them. You're not going to play into their play. You're not going to go into her bowl of pasta and start poking things around, which is something very common we tend to do. We want to play in their play area. What you want to do is you want to put your own set of pasta on the side, and you're going to play side by side. So you play with your own pasta, you mix your pasta, you change the colors so that she can see and she can observe what you're doing and copy, replicate, and understand that she can be creative in her own way, that she can go ahead and experiment what happens if she does this or that, but she will do it in her own play. You're not going to be in the same bucket, or at least on the same pasta that you're playing with. You want to do side by side. You want to have open-ended toys in your play area. And these are toys that the child gives the meaning, what the toy is, instead of what the toy, it tells you how to do it. So if I give you a box of blocks, they have no meaning. I don't know what to do with them unless I give them a meaning. I could put them side to side and create a road. I can put them and stack them up to create a house. So I'm giving the meaning to the toy on how this toy is going to be used. Except versus if I have a dog that plays music when I press the buttons, there's no other way to play with that toy except pressing the button to play music. So the toy is in charge of what the play is. So you want to have those open-ended toys, and we do have more information on our toy rotation class. What we want to do is we want to step back a little bit and observe and present activities based on the schema. So the power observation is going to be very big in your child's play. So you're going to be playing with your own pasta and you're going to see how she reacts to it. Even if you're not playing side by side and you're cooking and you're starting to see different patterns of different things that your child is doing in a repetitive way. Those are like clues and little secrets that your child is telling you of what they're working on. So we want to make sure that we take a step back and we observe. So if we observe them at play, you will discover the learning that's going on. And this is what play schemas come into play. They're going to help you identify what they are working and what they are learning. So in cognitive development, a child's cognitive development is not just about acquiring knowledge. It's not about giving them the worksheet and the ABCs and the numbers. The child has to develop or construct a mental model of the world. So kids don't think the way adults do, right? They have their world, and the world is around their own perspective and around them. They're egocentric beings, especially, you know, under 4 or 5. The world revolves around them because that's what has been happening the moment since they were born. It's just been around them. So, and I'm geeking out a little bit here, but I wanted to share with you kind of where this information comes from. So the psychologist John Piaget, he is very, very known in the learning through play world. He spent most of his professional life listening to children, watching children, and reading reports and researches about what the kids were doing, how they were learning, and how they were playing. He found that children don't think like grown-ups, and they do see the world differently. That behind their cute little illogical, irrational tantrums, right? There was a lot of thought processes, and that they have their own kind of order and their own special logic. So they think emotions first, and then they react logically, right? So they are emotional beings. They need to learn how to regulate those emotions, and they act from an emotional front line first. So he was the pioneer of play schemas. He defined schemas, and we're going to kind of break this down a little bit. A cohesive, repeatable actional sequences, possessing component actions that are tightly interconnected and governed by a core meaning. Okay, that was a bunch of gibberish. What does that actually even mean? So we're going to observe to identify play schemas, right? Play schemas are patterns of behavior your child does during play. So these patterns are things that are repetitive behaviors that allow your children to explore their ideas through play. The play is so important because that's how they make meaning into the world. It helps them create scientific understanding, and it makes sense of the world. So whatever is happening around them, you're going to often see them replicated at play. So at the early stages, when they're 1, 2 years old, you're going to see a lot of play, maybe cooking, because they see you cooking. Or maybe you took the dog to the vet, and you're going to see that replicating those behaviors on those things that are happening around them, the things that they're doing, they're going to replicate it in their play, because that's how they safely make changes to the behavior, changes to the what ifs, to kind of understand that cause and effect and the trial and error of the world, right? And that's how they make their connections. So schemas are usually those behaviors that I like to call it, they annoy us. Like they're a bit of bizarre, they're annoying, and you're like, I just don't understand. So what are some of those, like, you know, cute, funny, interesting, but still sometimes annoying behaviors? And I'll tell you some of the ones that I have found, especially in my house. Throwing things across the room all the time. I put that one first because that's one of the first behaviors that we often see, right? Give your child some food, and the first thing they want to do is they want to bang the plate and see what happens when the food, you know, falls into the ground. That's a very common one that we see. We see a lot of kids going through it. They're just little scientists, and they need to repeat these activities over and over because they don't understand that every time they throw the plate over, the same thing is going to happen. and they need to repetition is key. They need to just do it often to really understand, okay, it always happens the same way. It's always that the food comes out of the plate and the plate makes an awesome noise. Another one that's very common that you see and you might not realize is part of a developmental scheme is when they're covering themselves with paint. You see, and the key here is not that they do it once, it's that you see them repeating it. It's a repeating pattern. There, every time I give them paint, he's always putting paint all over his arm. Every time I give him lotion, he's putting lotions all over them. Every time I, put glue, all they want to do is cover themselves, right? So they're repeating the same pattern of behaviors. That's called a schema. Destroying or connecting things. Maybe your child is super into trains right now because they get to connect those magnetic trains. That's another schema. A bizarre one like that I thought is just so cute, and it recently happened to me because schemas happen from the moment they are toddlers until they're like 6 years old. So those early years, you're gonna see these schemas go. They're going to go through these schemas. They might not go through all of them, and we're going to go to see how many of them and what they are, but they could take one, and one could last a long time, or they can have two at the same time. So it's just the fact to step back, identify them so that we can create play opportunities so that they can play independently. We're going to help them in that experiment in a safe way. So one of the ones, and I'll show you a video, it's spinning. You see them spinning themselves, so they're going hands up. You see this a lot on like this 5-6-year-old kids, right? They're holding their hands up and they're just spinning around because that's, until they get dizzy. Or they will flip their bikes around and they see the tires, how they spin around. Or they like yo-yos or the spinning tops. That's a schema. They're repeating that behavior, and there's something going on in their brains. They're making those connections and making sense of that world. Another one that you might find often is they might be hiding in small spaces. I've seen kids try to fit in a Tupperware and a kitchen Tupperware, and that is a schema. They are just working through those math skills. So schemas are building blocks of intelligent behavior. So Piaget called the schemas the basic building blocks, the way to organize knowledge. So it is useful to think the schemas like as units of knowledge, each relating to one aspect of the world, including objects and actions and abstract concepts. So imagine yourself a Rolodex, right? I don't know if you even know what that is, but in my time, my parents used to have those with like everybody's address book. And if I needed to call the doctor, I would go to the doctor and I would find this information. So imagine their brain being like a big Rolodex, right? They're born with this Rolodex completely empty. So they need to start filling it and categorizing things. So wheels. Oh, I'm going to the wheel section. Oh, they spin around. Oh, what else can spin around? Oh, I can play with a yo-yo, spin around. So they start making all those little connections and filling up their little Rolodex. And as they grow, they're going to build upon those skills. So they understand that wheels spin. Okay, because it's circular. Oh, a hula hoop. Oh, a hula hoop doesn't spin as fast. Something else happens to it. So you can start seeing they're like building blocks of what they are learning. So they go from the very basic, oh, for it to spin, it needs to be round. Oh, but now I can spin myself and I'm not round. So it's just the act of going around. So they start to build this knowledge and piling up so that they start making sense of how the world works. For us, it is very common because we already built that. We already know that a hula hoop can spin, but it's not going to spin in its own place because it doesn't have an axis. We know that if we spin too much, we're going to get dizzy and we fall down. We already know that because our Rolodex has already been built and created. So there are 7 common known play schemas that the psychologists talk, and it's going to help you understand how your child plays. So the first one is the trajectory schema. That's when they throw everything. Very, very fun. I live with that I still live with that, but his his 12 months to 24 months, that's the only schema that he was into. So it was very frustrating until I learned how to pivot and work around that. You have the rotatory schema, that's when they spin around. They have the transporting schema, so they're moving things from one place to the other. The enveloping schema, which is like they're trying to cover themselves. Enclosing schema, we'll go through each of them individually so you can see some real samples. We have the connecting schema, and that's what it is. You connect and disconnect things. And the positioning schema, which is when they position things in alignment. Let's look at this video. And this is, Manu was about 15 months, probably, maybe 18 months. And he was going through the trajectory schema, which he was throwing everything. So my solution was, you want to throw things? We need to throw things that are small. And this was my afternoon activity for months. All I would do was fill that bucket with balloons and with balls. And I went to the dollar store and I got a bunch of balls. And what we did is we just throw the balls, because I didn't want him to throw the blocks or the food or things that were, could be dangerous to throw. So the trajectory schema is like the missile, right? Like they're just missiling everything around, like it's just missiles going all around. So they're interested in how things move. So now that you get away from like, oh my God, he's just throwing everything, and you're actually just saying he's just interested in how things move. So what else, how things move. A lot of things can move, right? How my body moves when I'm jumping off things. So this could be another, like, stop jumping on the couch. Why you keep jumping on the couch? They're just going through this schema. They need to understand how things move around. They're bumping into things. What happens when I, bump it? Does it fall over and does it jump off? They are interested in things that are already in motion. So a very common one is see that running water. They like to play in the sink. They like to feel the water in their hand. They are interested in everything that moves. If you throw cars, right? Like ramps, how things move across from one place to the next. What are they actually learning? Because I think if we understand that, we get away from the, oh my God, he's throwing everything and I can't stand it and I'm just picking up things all the time, to actually stepping back and saying, okay, he's going through something, his brain is making connections, and he's actually learning. So what is he learning? He's learning cause and effect. So when I throw the ball, this is what happens. They're working on their big muscles, their gross motor skills. So motor skills, so for the gross, is those big muscles. So when they pick up that ball and they throw it across the room, when they grab themselves and jump off the couch, it's all those big muscles, right? Their visual tracking, so they can see the object move from one place to the other. They can see the water falling down and they can try to track to see what happens when it hits your hand and it falls down. They are understanding what body awareness is, right? Where does my body stop and where does my other child body starts? Or where is it that I'm moving across and the space that I'm taking through the activities that I'm doing? And they're working on predicting. And that's why they do it over and over, because they're like, if I throw this farther out, like I think it's going to hit the tree. Or, oh, but this one, feels a little bit different. This ball is a little bit heavier. If I throw it at the same speed or the same strength, is it going to reach the tree? And these are all mathematical and science skills that your child at 1, 2, 3 years old are doing. Like, it is amazing. They are working hard. All we see on the outside is like, oh my God, he's just throwing everything. But there's a lot of learning happening. So I think one of the most important part of this is, okay, so what do we do about it, right? Because I'm just tired of picking up blocks. So the first thing is you have to remove everything that is hard and dangerous, because if that's what they're working on, then you need to remove that are toys that are not appropriate for this schema. So you need to create your environment around the activities that are going to help him go through this schema, instead of hearing no, 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 no. We need to create yes environments, right? And copy of these activities are on a PDF attached that you can download. So we have all the schemas and all the activities that you can do. So if you observe your child doing something, some of these schemas, you can go ahead and create some of these activities. But you can do paper airplanes, right? Those are safe to throw around, and it'll be a fun activity you guys can do together. You can do throwing toys, but they make sure they are soft, so stuffed animals or balls or something, pom-poms. I used to have a pool of pom-poms, and he was just had a blast just throwing them around. And they were not hurting anyone because they were soft. You can get yo-yos, you can get ramps and cars, or the tubes, you know, like where the Christmas trees, the Christmas ornaments come, there's like a big tube. We would throw cars through that and see them out on the other side. Those are very popular. Those are very fun to play with. Musical instruments, any throwing games. So if you have beanbag games, or if you have those Velcro games, there's like an IKEA game that you just throw the little, I don't know if they're bugs, they're like little creatures. You throw them and the Velcro attaches to. Those are fun. You know, baseball, hammering, anything that's like helping you move things from one place to the other in a safe way. So now let's look at this one. This one is the rotatory schema. And we spend days going to the park, and this is the only activity he did for the 20 minutes we would be at the park. For like 2 weeks, this is all I could see. So he would spin as far, as fast as he could, and then just spin. Like that was it. And at home, he would place a little car and he would put it inside a bowl, and he would just watch it spin and spin and spin. The rotatory schema, they are interested in things that are circular or that spin or turn. So they are spinning themselves in circles, they are twisting things, they are drawing circles, they are exploring wheels and spinning them to see how they move. They are watching so if you have a front loader or like a dryer, sometimes I would walk by and I'm like, what are you doing? And he literally was just staring at the washing machine go like this. It's interesting to them. They're making connections. They're playing with toys that spin. So when I identified this is what was happening, I got him those little toppers. I don't know what I call, like spin tops. And he would literally ask me to spin it because he couldn't do it. And he would just sit there and stare at it. So this one is not as annoying as maybe the trajectory where they're just throwing everything. This one's a little more like, oh, that's a bizarre thing that he's doing, a little more interesting. But they're still learning, right? They are learning how things move. They're learning fine motor skills, right? They're spinning and they're moving things around. They're using their finger muscles. They are working on gross motor skills as well. And they're also looking for cause and effect. Things that you can do if your child is on this schema. Keys and locks activities, nuts and bolts, paint rollers, basically anything that, you know, rotates, right? Painting with cars. So they're painting, they're putting paint on the table, and then you go like that. And it will, like, the wheels will get into the paint and they will paint across the table or the paper. Anything they can mix and stir, taping markers to the back of toy cars and driving them. And some of these are hyperlinked where you can actually see some of these activities that I'm talking to you about. They can stamp circles. This is a great opportunity to teach them about shapes and circles especially. So then we move on to transporting schema. And this is so cute, but it could also get annoying, because if you start finding your shoes in the kitchen, and if you start finding boxes with all these little things on it all over the house, it might be time to get them a little shopping cart. So I'll show you. This is my friend. She posted this on Instagram, and I said, please send me that, because I know exactly what's happening and I know how you can encourage his play. So they took the pot, and now he was like transferring it all over the house. He just loved stuffed everything in it and just move it across, right? So I said, get a shopping cart, one of those little toy shopping carts, or even a box or something, and give it to him. And he's been playing with that for weeks. So schemas is a way for you to identify what they're working on and then provide activities that are going to help them develop. And then you don't have to do much. You just sit back and observe, right? You give them the shopping cart and some little play fruits, and he'll transfer that thing all over the house. So the transporting schema is a child is repeatedly taking things from one place to another, either with their hands or using something to contain the objects, like wagons or boxes or trolleys, or apparently your kitchen pot. They're interesting. You will find there's some toddlers are just collectors, and if you give them pants with pockets, they're going to stuff that in, and they're just going to collect it because they like to carry things. So they're always going to be carrying things, or they might be very addicted to Ziploc bags because they can carry a lot of things. And my oldest used to do that. Like, his thing was the Ziploc bags, and I didn't understand then. What I understand now is that he was into the transporting. So he would put all his Legos and he would move them from one place to the other, and he would take them everywhere. So this is a great opportunity to teach them to clean up because they love to put things in baskets. So what a great opportunity to teach them how to clean up, because it requires to put the toys that are on the floor into baskets. So you can use these schemas to your advantage. So they're learning object permanence, right? And object permanence means that if I put an object here and I cover it up, when I take my cover off, it's still going to be there, right? If I put my toy in the basket and I walk away, when I come back, the object is still going to be there. They're working on fine and gross motor skills, right? They're like using all of their bodies to push these trolleys or wagons or things across, as well as the fine motor, which they're like holding little toys and putting them in. So they need to use their little finger muscles to make this transfer things. They are working on spatial awareness and measuring, like, how much can I put in there? Will it fit? So lots of science and math going on with these schemas. And some of the activities that I said is, providing your child with wagons and baskets and play trolleys. So what the schemas help you is, once you identify what your child is working on, you can add some of these activities, either that you do together if it's an art activity, or things that you place around your playroom or your play area, so that you can encourage more of this play in a safe way. So if you add baskets and containers, maybe if your child is into it, you can do your little play area as a market, or you can go and take a shopping trip to Trader Joe's, that they have the little shopping carts, and they're going to be able to put all these little things in there. You can add gift bags to your playroom so that they can play toys inside. You can give them like wallets and coin purses. So the idea is that it gives you a little bit of an insight into what's happening in their brain, what's happening into how they're making those connections, and then you can get creative in what you provide so that they can do more of that play. So let's talk about, we talked about how she covers, herself in paint. That's enveloping schema. So they're trying to hide themselves as much as they can. And they can use boxes, they'll use paint, anything they can cover themselves with, right? So they are interested in covering themselves and hiding things. So this is, this schema is cute, but you want to provide things that they can use to cover either themselves or their toys. So dressing up, this might be something that they like. They like to play peekaboo because they can hide and cover themselves under the blanket. They can painting their entire hand. So a lot of bathtub play you can do, shaving cream play you can do, that allows them to work through that schema. They are working on object permanence, right? Like, if I hide my toy under the box, will it still be there when I take the box away? They're working on fine and gross motor skills, right? It takes a lot of coordination to cover yourself in shaving cream or in paint. They're problem solving, right? Because now that my hand is all covered, what am I gonna do with this hand? Like, do I wash it? Do I go on this side? So they're doing a lot of problem solving. If they're trying to fit something that's very big in a box and it doesn't fit, they have to problem solve. Okay, what can I do to hide this giant toy because this box is too small? They're visual tracking, so they can see how things move in the space, and they can do spatial awareness, right? Like how big their toy is versus the space they are working with. Ideas and activities you can do. You can do dress up, dolls. You can do wooden eggs. You can do wrapping the gifts or unwrapping gifts. You can do sock puppets because they can do it. You can give them gloves. You can give them hats, like lots of dressing up. Play silks are like fun because those are kind of like little blankets they can use to cover their toys or cover themselves. Baking, it's pies and things that like you could hide things into the crust. You can do Play-Doh as well, right? They can hide the little toys under the Play-Doh and then they can use their finger muscles to get them out. So the enclosing schema could be very similar to the enveloping because they're actually like closing things around, but this is more like making frames. And let's see how this could look. So as you can see, she's just creating little frames around it. They're not covering the toys. They're not hiding the toys. They're just making frames around it. So they're just interested in containing things, just making them be close together. They're creating borders or lines. They're making fences or walls. They're creating maybe borders around their art, or you can often see them, how they use their plate to contain their own food. And they're working pre-math skills, right? They're planning and how they're distributing the elements that they have into the space that they have. They're working on fine motor skills, on gross motor skills, and on object permanence. So these are a lot of learnings are being repeated throughout the schemas because at this early age, basically, it's very heavy on learning those concepts. So you can add on to your playroom some tents and make forts. The activities that you see here are very similar to the enveloping because they're so similar into the play that they can do, like tents and forts. You could see the enveloping schema because it's hiding, but if they're not the one hiding and they're just putting things inside and moving them into making them a little fort, could be into the enclosing schema. And a lot of play advocates, you can see they put those two together, the enveloping and the enclosing. And I just wanted to divide them because they are a little bit different. One is not completely covering it, the other one is just making little frames. But a lot of the activities that you do are just very, very similar. So if you, play hide and seek, if you do the shoebox habitat making is just making a little world inside a shoebox. They can contain their space within a shoebox. All right, connecting schema is anything that connects to each other. So magnets connect to each other. Yeah, magnet trains, Velcro connects things and disconnect. But it can also look like this. So he was 2 years old. He is 4 now, and this is what we're going through right now. You are connecting and you are disconnecting. So you are Bob the Builder and you are Bob the Destroyer. And this could get annoying when they're also bumping and making loud noises. The connecting schema is interested in joining things together, connecting objects and trying to put things together. Things that I have seen. He takes bungee cords and attaches random cabinets to toys. I've seen him trying to lock cabinets with yarn. I've seen him trying to grab the dog leashes, and tie them to one of his toys or to a chair, and constantly I have to disconnect the dog from the leash because, you know, that's not, we walk them with the leash. We don't just attach them and connect things with it. But he plays a lot with the dog leashes because it helps him connect one thing to another. So they're tying things, they're gluing. Gluing is like he wants to glue everything. They're connecting, disconnecting. So magnet tiles are awesome because they connect them and he can collapse them and they break apart. But what are they learning? They're learning to understand how things come together and how things come apart, right? They're working on cause and effect. If I connect it and I bump it with my car, what's going to happen with all this stuff that I'm just like, you know, running over and making so loud noises. Working how things, spatial awareness, right? My space within the space that I'm working on. There's a lot of science and math skills such on predicting and estimating, right? How many magnet tiles do I need to create the space that I want? Or I wonder if I go full force, will I make a bigger impact on those cushions when I bump into them? So lots of math and science through these schemas. Ideas, right? And I had to go through this myself, even though I knew the schema he was going through. I was like, I don't even know. So snap beads, waffle blocks, Bristol blocks, like this is a lot of my shopping right now. But anything that connects and disconnects, like magnetic fishing games and dominoes and the Jenga game, Legos, anything, lacing toys. And I think we're almost done. So the last one is the positioning schema. And this one is just cute. There's no harm in it, right? They're just basically aligning things. And some people be like, oh my God, my child is OCD. Everything needs to be in a line. It doesn't. They're just enjoying putting things in order. And this is a great opportunity to teach counting, right? If they're aligning 5 little pigs, hey, let's count. Great opportunity for counting activities. So what are they learning? They're recognizing the difference and the similarities in things, right? The colors are different, or maybe the sizes are different, or maybe the weight is different. They're learning what we call visual discrimination. And visual discrimination is an understanding those differences. Because what's going to happen when they start to write or read or identify letters, I need you to understand what's the difference between the letter F, the capital letter F, and the letter E, right? That's a visual discrimination. But before they can get to discriminate that into letters and understand what's an E and what's an F, we need to bring it down a little bit and understand, okay, there's such a thing as differences and there's such a thing as similarities. So with the activity here, they are the same because they're all cows, right? But they are different because they have different colors. And that's visual discrimination. Just by observing what they're seeing, they can see that there are some things that are similar between the objects and things that are different. So lots of math, lots of science skills. They're like problem solving and exploring patterns and classifying and planning. So lots of math. Activities that you can do, toys that you can provide. You can give them buttons and they can sort them. You can give them those color bears and they can sort the big bears and the little bears. They can make patterns. You can go on nature walks and look for patterns within nature. You can look for shells. Lots of sorting activities will be very entertaining for your child. So great opportunity to teach color recognition, to teach shapes, size, and categorize different things that are similar and the same. I know I gave you a lot of information and a lot of ideas, and you're going to not need them all right now. But what I want you to do is I want you to take this month. This month is the month of December. There's a lot going on in our areas. Like we have so much things going on between the Christmas decorations and things like that, and holidays and kids at home from school. So I understand that getting into your lesson plan could get a little harder. This is why I wanted to do the play schemas on this month, because it is a month of observation. I want you to take the time to observe your child. They might not be going through any play schemas, but then they might. So now that you know which are the ones that they are that we have, the 7 that we have, you can kind of step back and start to recognize if there's the different behaviors or patterns that they're doing that you can see. And if they are, the easiest way to do independent play is to provide some of those activities or some of those toys that we talked about. And for you to have a quick guide, you don't have to go watch this presentation all over just to try to get to the slide about the activities. I made you a PDF that not only has quick guide activity sheets. So if it's like, my child is throwing this, oh, that's the trajectory schema, I'm going to set up a car ramp. So like a quick little activity. It actually has everything that we talked about in this presentation in that PDF. So there's a full page for each of the schema, what they are, what you are looking at, what they're learning, and then a full page of those activities. So we have the quick guide so you can identify something quickly, or if they're really into the schema and you really need lots of ideas and links and things to bring into your play, we have that for you. Download that information, download that guide, keep it handy because you're going to need it from here until they're about 6 years old. These schemas are going to repeat themselves or they're going to change throughout the years. So they might go through the trajectory schema for some months, then leave it, and then 3 years later, it'll show up again. So this is a resource that is going to be very valuable for you. And I think it's one of the key things about learning through play and observation. In the States, not a lot of people know about it. Even teachers at school don't even know this exists. But in Europe, in Australia, this is very big. John Pidgeot is one of the masters of learning through play. And I really think this is going to be helpful for you because it has been helpful for me, and it has been easier for me when I do coaching to identify what the child is working towards and what I can do to keep him entertained and engaged and understand and feel confident that they are actually learning a lot of these pre-kindergarten skills. So I hope this was helpful. I know it was a bit long, but I really wanted to kind of give you all the information and all the activity ideas that you can do. Remember, there are 7 play schemas that they were working towards. They can have 1, 2, 3, or none at the same time. So we have the trajectory schema, which is when they're throwing everything. Rotatory schema, when they're interested in things that spin or how things move. The transporting schema, which is when they like to transport things from one place to the other. The enclosing schema, when they like to hide or cover themselves in things. Connecting and disconnecting, Bob the Builder, Bob the Destroyer. And the positioning schema, that they like to align things. So your child does not have OCD, he's just going through the positioning schema. And with that, I'm going to let you go. I want you to take some time, observe, and let me know in the Facebook group if you see any of these behaviors with your child and which of the schemas you're working towards. And don't forget to download the guide, and I'll see you on the next video.